Can't nothing stop me. He put me on a pedestal. Can't nothing top me. Watch me soar like an eagle, wings spread out. Resurrection up on that wood is where he bled out. Gave up the ghost and he gave me the ghost. I can't do this on my own, only in him my post. Yup, communion wine, raise the glass up for the toast. Blood shed, body broken, his love does the most. Behold the lamb slain for all of mankind. He put in the work, healed the lame and blind. Brought us to no longer Gentile or Jew. The gospel is for me and the gospel is for you too. Truly beloved, blessed, sifted, tempted and tested. Called, chosen, elected, persecuted, perfected. My potential is exponential when I praise Jehovah. I never knew I'd be a saved, bold Christian soldier. I ain't perfect, but I'm holy. I know that's oxymoron in the scriptures every day, so I can serve them thorough. Repping every hood, city, block, nation, and borough. I don't wear a crucifix, but my cross is my logo. I ain't in it for dolo.
Well. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I pray that your Thanksgiving holiday, for those who chose to celebrate Thanksgiving, was eventful and was a blessing for you to see your families, and our continued prayers for those who are in what we call the season of first. And so this is their first holiday without their loved one. I know some very close friends who've lost family members, mothers, aunties, fathers, and tomorrow there'll be a service for a young lady by the name of Kayla Bledsoe, who was murdered about 3 weeks ago. They're finally having her services tomorrow, and so I can only imagine what it's like for that family to sit at a dinner table without their 22-year-old daughter being with them. And so continued condolences. Good evening to you, Miss Prophet. Always grateful to have you supporting Message Monday. So thank you very much. So tonight is kind of like a part two. We're continuing forward talking about fathers and daughters with the theme of dads are present. Forget what you heard. And so I know there tends to be talk sometimes about fathers not being present. An interesting piece that came up over the last week was someone putting up a post talking about, we need to, I'm assuming single woman, could have been married. I'm not sure. Didn't give details, but talked about how dads can be in the house and not present. And so if that be the case, that be the case. But I want to talk about the men that I'm surrounded with and the role that we play in the lives of our children on a daily basis, even if we don't necessarily see them that much. So, two people who live very busy lives. Typically, those are parents and children, right? We do a lot of running them around. They're at school more than half the day. And there are just things that we can't be at all times and places we can't be with them at all times. And so what's really keen is that coming together. Before we get into that, I do want to talk about a man by the name of Kevin Strickland. I have not done the detailed research to find out why this man was released outside of it just being a wrongful conviction. He was arrested at 18 years old. He was the longest serving prisoner in prison in the United States for a crime he did not commit. Said he was at home at the time this crime was committed. No alibi, and we know the long history that we have in this country of black men being lied on and tried and prosecuted and persecuted for that matter and placed into prison. 40 something years behind bars for a crime he did not commit in Missouri. He gets exonerated, but Missouri doesn't have to pay him anything because he was not exonerated by DNA. And so this is what racism does. It will keep you in bondage and then make a technicality of why they don't have to pay you for that bondage. And actually, his situation is similar to slavery. And I mean that in every sense of the word. You let a man out of prison, you give him nothing to take care of himself and nothing to provide for himself, and you were wrong as a prosecutor, as police officers, as a judge, right? These judges take this crappy evidence, right? But this is where humanity wins. This brother, after spending all his time in prison, when people found out last week that he would not be given any compensation by the state of Missouri, people have already raised on GoFundMe $1.6 million for this man. And I think that is just a testament to who we are as a people, who we are as a nation, and who we are as a country. I get it. I know some people don't like when I brag on my America. It's still my country, y'all. Still love it, flaws and all. But I think this is one of those perfect signs. Now, I could not give what other folks gave, but I did give. But I saw somebody drop like 25 stacks to this brother. And I just thought that was amazing. The problem that we run into, and we're talking a lot about justice and equity in terms of how the Lord judges righteously. When we think about the amount of inequities that we have still within our government ranks, within the laws that bind, people of color, no different from what the Maori people go through in New Zealand, honestly, no different from what the Aboriginal people go through in Australia, and the things that Australia has done are just as horrible as the United States, if not more horrible than the United States. Don't forget, they say that the sugar cane, the sugar, those who were in Latin America or South America for slavery, they said that slavery was 10 times worse than chattel slavery in America. And I don't even want to envision what that looks like because it was pretty horrible. But I did just want to mention this young man, Kevin Strickland, 62 years old, home after being 40 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Google him. And if you want to drop this brother $1, $5, $10, whatever you'd like to give to contribute. Now I know, oh man, this dude out of prison, he a millionaire already. What I look like giving money to him? It ain't like that, man. Just imagine your world being taken that long. But to talk about that, he never got the opportunity, as far as I know, to be a father. You get locked up at 18 years old, you have no opportunity to be a father. Or to be fathered, for that matter. So let that sit and let that resonate also with you. But let's get back on talking about dads, fathers, and being present. Now, I'm pretty open and pretty candid. Y'all know, people who know me know that I can work my behind off. It's just what I do, right? I work hard to provide for my family, but that's not an excuse for me not to be present. In one of my songs on my album that's coming out, I say, got a daughter who's my heart, and she got a cool dad, a workaholic, time I lost, I will never get back. So I believe there were some early developmental years in my daughter's life when she was in certain activities that it was on me. Like I don't put it on the job. It was on me to make the decision what I was going to prioritize. Context is, after being laid off for 7.5 months, yeah, I was just like, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to make sure I'm not in this situation again. I don't want my family suffering. But that could go into the excuse category. The bottom line is dads are present. Specifically, Black fathers are present. And so I just like to tell how this can work when you do have families that are separated, where mom is no longer with dad, vice versa. And you have these situations. And I'm not talking about situations where, the mom may be playing off the kid and don't want the dad to see him, or the dad who has custody is playing off the mom and he don't want the mom to see him. I'm not talking about those cases. I think those cases, they may be large in number, but I think those cases are still the anomaly. A perfect example I have is the example of my sister-in-law, who raised two phenomenal young men. All right. And with raising them, each came with their own challenges. Right. And so, where a dad wasn't present, you have coaches who are present or teachers who are present, you know. And you had another case where another friend, like, they were separated. Man, I never saw this dude without his father. Right. And so, even when situations of divorce or just, outside of marriage, when you get pregnant, like, I've seen situations where fathers have always been present in the life of their children, in the lives of their children, right? And so where I may have missed a gymnastic event early on, where I may have missed a dance recital, though I don't believe my daughter doesn't dance, so I didn't miss a dance recital, but where I may have missed a gymnastics competition or a swim meet and pieces like that. Like there were days I just could not be there because when you're providing, you still have to provide. When you take a look at historically of how men were the breadwinners and women were the nurturers and the developers, right, of the home, the foundation of the home. They were the glue and the backbone that kind of kept it working. Because when dad came home from work, and you're talking about agrarian societies, Little House on Prairie, when dad came home from work, like he wasn't no computers back then, right? This is what I do now. This wasn't like that, right? Dad had to come home. He needed to rest his body, right? And so the wife stayed home in order to provide the kind of nurture and the kind of situation that she was in. You have to come to this agreement. This is the importance when you talk about parenting styles, that if you're getting ready to get married, or I'll even take it a step further than that, this is Christian Man, Christian Walk, Christian Talk. Welcome, everybody. I didn't even do my greeting. I just jumped straight into the conversation. But I'll say this. If you are Christian, and if you are a Christian who's engaged in sexual activity, you should be ready to parent. You should be having that conversation right now. What's our long-term plan if we decide we want to have children? What's our long-term plan? Well, if you've got a wife or a future wife or fiance who says, well, baby, I want you to stay home and take care of the kids. Well, that may not be her dream or her desire. That's something serious you need to talk about now, because you don't want to come into a situation where you tell somebody, okay, I'll work when I get pregnant, when we get married, that's fine. And then you change your whole mind. And it's vice versa, right? If there's an expectation, he's like, look, and look, and this is not a knock to anyone. It takes two incomes in this society, literally, to be comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable on one income. It takes two incomes, right? For the most part. I'm not saying you can't survive. You just will be a minimalist. I'm kind of a minimalist outside of my technology. But what I'm saying is these are conversations leading up to you parent now before you even have kids. And you parent now in conversation with your significant other or your fiance to discuss how these things will play out. Because you may decide, oh, well, if I have a child, we're just going to, I'll do my time at home, then I'll go back into the office. Or what if you have twins? What if you have triplets? Now, I ain't trying to wish that on anybody by any means, but I'm just saying that could be an occurrence for you that happens. I got a buddy who had twins, had a child, and just had another set of twins. And I'm sitting to him talking about, hey man, what's the long-term plan, bro? You can't do an 8 to 5. An 8 to 5 is not going to sustain you and your family partner. Your wife staying home. You got 5 kids now. How are we going to help you change how are we going to help you change the game? He's starting to think about these things now, right? This is why I love working with young people before they get into these different phases of their lives where they're now caught up and they're now stuck when you don't have to be. And so you start having the parenting conversations now, and you have to be real and authentic about it. And when I talk about authentic, I know it's a word that's kind of thrown in and out there, but I'm talking about this in regards to you being honest with the person you're getting ready to spend the rest of your life with. If your number one desire is to stay home and parent and homeschool, you need to make that clear. You need to speak boldly to it. You need to speak courageously to it, but you need to make that clear. All right. Premarital conversations for my wife and I. We were discussing these things, right? And it came up again after. Hey, I want to make sure we on the same page. Well, it kind of takes two incomes to live in this day and age, but I guess the Lord gonna have to make sure he provide, which he has done wonderfully, I would say. But I say that to say these conversations didn't just stop, right? Life changes, situations change. So let's not go to the hard stuff first. Let's not go to, oh, they got sick, she had to go to work. Like those are the situations, because life gonna always happen and we don't know how it's gonna always come. But for the most part, and then what are those expectations for parenting? Dad, how can you be present? changing diapers is a parental job. It's not a mother job or a father job. It's a parental job. You know, now my situation was a bit different, right? My wife stayed home, but she was staying home all day with the baby. So even though I'm out working, I still had some breath away from that which she was subscribed to for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so there were times when when the baby would get up at night, I would get up. Hey babe, I got it. Because I know it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I got to be out the door by 6 o'clock in the morning in my car to head to the train to get to work on time. But you doing this 24/7, you don't get any breaks in those early months, right? And so those were the type of things that I would do as a husband and as a father to be present. You know, there were times when she would have my daughter down for bed and she's winding down the night, and I would just jump in the room and jump in the bed with her and start harassing her and tickling her. She looking at me like, "What you doing, bruh? Why are you doing this?" But it was just what we did. That was the time I had to spend with her, and I made good use of that time. And of course, if I wake her up, you know who's responsible for putting her back to bed, right? Crystal has a question. Can you talk more about parenting before becoming a parent as it relates to being present? How do you plan for it? How are you intentional about being present? Now, that's a great question, Crystal, and it's an excellent question. I'll say this first to deal with the part about parenting before becoming a parent. Part of the easiest part to do is look at how you were raised and look at the relationship between your mother and your father or dad, stepdad, even if you were in foster care like I was, it doesn't matter what the situation is, however you were raised, you look at that situation of child rearing based on how you were reared as a child from what you can remember. And then you actually talk to your parents or your grandparents or aunt and uncle and say, hey, if you could have done anything different in your parenting, what would it have been? What do you think you could have done better? What do you wish you could have done better as a parent? So these are the conversations that you have about parenting before parenting. So we talk about premarital counseling. There should be parental counseling. Like there are some people who will get animals just to get a taste of what it's like to parent. Now, don't get me twisted. I'm not comparing animals to children. I'm just going to make some parallels. Animals need to be cared for. They need to be changed. They need to be walked. They need immunizations, right? They need to be taught what to do in the house and outside of the house. And that if they have to use the bathroom, they either learn how to scratch the door or bark at you loud enough when they're hungry. They know how to bring you their little food can, right? So again, I'm not comparing animals to children, but what I'm saying is there are people who like, let me at least get a taste of what this can be like in the future. And it does in some ways prepare you. And I'm just looking at this from a caring for another life aspect. All right. So, how do you plan for it when it comes to being present? That's the challenge, right? What do you do when you have a household where you got two working parents? Who's going to pick the kid up from school? Who's going to cook dinner? You can't put that stuff directly on the wife. You can't put it directly on the husband, right? There has to be this conversation of who does what when. How do we work this out as a team of one? Not a team of I or a team of me, a team of one. How do we work this out in our parenting styles, right? We used to do some of these courses at church with the parenting ministry just to really get into, we're not here to teach you how to parent. We're here to help each other parent, right? Because what works for your household may not work for this household based on the situation and the circumstance. But how you begin to relate to being present is, first of that presence is you got to be present in your marriage or in your relationship. You got to be present now with the person you're with, right? Like, I know me, I'm going to do this as an example. All right. If I'm on this and my daughter and my wife start talking to me, they could probably get whatever they want because while this is in my hand, I'm not present. I can hear, but I can't comprehend what's going on, right? Those are ways of being present. So how is that now in conversation? Just start observing now what you're doing or what other people are doing when they're engaged in conversation, right? Everybody is so glued to their cell phone now. I just came from a family dinner. Everybody had their phone out. I'm trying to, I pull my phone out, I guess, right? And there were times where we did dialogue, but the dialogue was like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yep, I feel you. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep, yep, I got you, right? There's these distractions because technology in this digital age has made it hard for us to even look at people face to face. This is why people are having a hard time during job interviews because they're so used to being distracted with a cell phone in their hand. They're not used to looking at anyone for a long period of time, right? Those distractions are there. Those distractions come in. And so part of that being present, how do you plan for it? Is consistently saying, even for you, and your view may be off because you may feel you were parented a way that you were not actually parented. That doesn't mean how you felt about how you were parented is not real. It just means you may have a lens or a view that's false. And you're only going to get correction on that when it comes to talking to your parents, if they're still here. And if your parents are not here, if your grandparents are not here, my grandmother died in 1979. I haven't been able to talk to grandma in a long time. I'll talk about the dream I had some other time because man, that thing was a little scary. um, but I say that to say this is how you begin to talk about being present, right? This is when you got to get ingrained into the life and the upbringing of your significant other. Now, you're not going to get everything before marriage. Some stuff is not going to come out until after marriage, right? Why is that? It's because that's just how the heat turns up, and that's exactly how it is, right? You're not going to get it's something about when people come together in marriage, in God's plan and God's design, when they come together in marriage, Satan turns up the heat. That's just how it works. Okay? That's just how it works. But think about this. Talk to your significant other about their upbringing. Are they closed in certain areas? Are there certain areas that they won't let you into when you're speaking with them? Is their body language off? Do they get quiet about a certain aspect of their childhood? If they do, that's something you need to engage. Your husband may not want the daughter or the son going over anybody's house for a sleepover. There may be a reason for that. Your wife may not want the kids going over anybody's house for a sleepover, including relatives. There's a reason behind all of that. These are the things you have to start discussing, right? And it's not to make you a helicopter parent, but you have a life in your hand that you have to take care of and that you have to nurture. Those are the things that are important. And so even before you have the actual feeling of what it's like for a woman to carry a child inside of her womb, there's no greater connection of that outside of the relationship between the Lord and a human being. There's no greater connection on this planet than a mother growing a seed inside of her. None. Test me on that. Bring your data. I'm going to tell you, there's nothing. You're feeding this person. You're nurturing them. They're taking your life source energy away from you so you can give them life. That connection is real strong and bonding, right? And so they're familiar with the mother being present at birth. How do we now transfer that over to the father? Now, dad is there. Dad is speaking to the child. He's, talking to the baby at night and all these things. But when that child comes out of that woman, how then do we transfer the essence of this type of nurturing and delivery? How do we transfer this over now to the father? Well, we do that, or one of the ways to do that is to ensure dad owns the household. Dad sets the tone. Dad takes the lead. There's a difference between when a mother says something to a child and a father says something to a child. There's a difference between when a child breaks a mother's heart and when a child breaks a father's heart. It's two different feelings that come with that. It's about that part of being present, right? Now, I spent more time in probably 11 years with my wife's dad than I did my own dad my entire life. Now, it rocked me when my biological father died. And this is a man who was not present for me. It rocked me when he died. But when my wife lost her dad, bruh, man, I felt that thing. Like it shook me. I miss his presence to this day. Right? It's about that relationship that has to be cultivated and nurtured. But to have the conversation in advance is how it relates to being present. Those are the pieces that you have to do and get into. All right. How do you plan for it? Well, you can only plan as you plan. You know, you may say, hey, in 3 years, we'll decide we want to be parents. Well, you know, that one night of passion when y'all didn't do what y'all was supposed to do, you know, y'all, hey, that 3-year plan just turned into a 9-month plan, just like that. Right. But it's also being able to trust that God is with you and that he will not leave you or forsake you and that he'll lead you on the path of parenting that is straight and narrow, even though it's wide and deep, right? He'll give you the basics. The basics come through the scriptures that we have. The basics come through the Proverbs. There are just things you have to know. I don't believe in I don't believe in capital punishment for my child. I don't believe in it. I don't believe it's necessary. I believe that if I lead well, and I got a temper, you know, Minister Briscoe can go there if he needs to, right? But no, I try to curb all of that. I want to be dealt with and handled differently than I was handled when I was a child. I don't want that kind of parenting in my life, right? But what I had to work to get out and still working on getting out is the yelling, right? The escalation, you know, it's still working some things out, but that comes with it comes with practice. And if you got a teenager, one day you're gonna get all the practice in the world. Trust me, you're gonna have time to compensate for what you perceive as flaws in your child rearing and in how you rear your child and in your parenting styles. Right? Being intentional about being present was me deciding about 4 years ago, my job is not more important than my family if that means I lose my job. Right? There were plenty of times my wife looked at me and she was like, if this is how you got to come home, I'd rather you quit your job. I'd rather you go back to being the man making 40,000 because that dude was cool. This dude who making 80,000, I don't like this guy. We'll survive. We'll make it. So I had to decide to be intentional in my parenting. And part of that being intentional decided I got to say what was priority for me and what wasn't. And the thing was, y'all, I could have did it the whole time. I just had my own perception of what work is. I didn't like leaving a help desk ticket open. If I had a teacher who said her computer stopped working and it's 5 o'clock and she'd come to me while I got my coat in my coat in my hand, I'm like, well, just leave your computer here. Okay, can I pick it up in the morning? Will it work? Yeah, I got you. Don't worry about it. So if it meant I had to stay 6 extra hours, I would stay 6 extra hours. That was just my work ethic. But what I had to learn was that it was costing me too much. Not just me physically, it was costing me time with my wife and my daughter. I had to decide over this holiday break. I had a lot of work to do. I decided, you know what, on this day, I'm going to do this now. I actually worked on Thanksgiving for like 3 hours. I'm just sharing this with y'all. Don't tell nobody. Oh, this is the public. My bad. But I got it out the way and I didn't go back. Now, were there other things for me to do? Yeah, because I like when I'm off work, I like preparing for the next week. I shut all that down. After Thursday, I shut it down. I had to be intentional about doing that. I had to be intentional about being present with my family. And there's power in intentions because intentions lead to purpose. Purpose leads to drive. Drive leads to manifestation. You want to be intentional in your drive as a parent and being present because you want the manifestation of what you're pouring into your children to manifest itself. You want to see the fruition of the work and the labor and the work that you've had to put in parenting them. That's what comes with the territory. That's how you pull it off. That's how you're authentic with it. That's how you're genuine. That's what honors God. That's what honors God. And that's the powerful piece. People say, oh, we don't really have no books on parenting. There's plenty of books on parenting. You can start with the Holy Bible and you can go to every other parenting book that people have written out there. There's plenty of books on parenting, right? But if you don't want to feel like reading a book, you don't have to. Turn on the news. One night. I got people who don't watch the news at all, and I'm not mad at you. Turn on the news one night. Just one. You will know based on that how you want to parent and how you don't want to parent. Just watching the news one night. Because what you're going to see is how did this young woman get into this situation that leads to them being incarcerated? Now, there are some things that our young people are going to get involved in that have nothing to do with our parenting at all. That's another thing I want to squash tonight when it comes to being intentional and when it comes to being present as a parent. And for fathers, there are things our children are going to get into that have nothing to do with how we parented. I don't care what anybody says. You do have those cases that come up where the dad wasn't present, the mom wasn't present, foster care system, whatever. But the seed is the seed. And you don't get to control it. Just like you can't choose your family members, you can't choose what's coming out of you. All you can do is know what you're pouring into that vessel that God has given you. And whether they take to that or not, that's not on you. That's on the child. Right? And it goes back to what Ryan said in here. Social media has disconnected us in ways that now something that should be used to connect is actually disconnecting. Right? What kind of paradox is that? What kind of irony is that? Where something that's used to connect people is actually disconnecting people. And what we can't do is get caught up in parenting. I don't believe I've made this mistake. My daughter will check me if I have. I believe I've never compared her to anybody else's child. The temptation is there, but I don't know what's going on in that household. If I compare my child to somebody else's child, what I'm saying is I don't want you for a child. I want them for a child. That's not parenting intentionally. That's parenting destructively. Yes, we all want the best for our children, but think about how you would feel. You know what? You don't act like such and such wife. So were you saying you want to be married to her? Is that what I'm hearing? Right? So these are things we have. So intentional also comes with the language. Yes, sir, brother Ryan. Intentional is the key word to start off 2022. Yeah. Intentional. There's a Christian song, be intentional. He's intentional, right? We have to be able to understand that when it comes to parenting, it is not easy. And it's not going to be easy. Now, there's some parents who've had it cake. They've had zero problems with their child ever. I commend you. I'm happy for you. That's so beautiful. That's so wonderful. I'm glad you made it through. But in some cases, it's not like that. But if you're putting in the work, I may not see the manifestation of what I'm putting into my daughter right now. It may not come for 10 years later. It may not come until I'm gone and I won't get to witness it at all. But the effects and the remnants of it should be long lasting as long as I'm doing it God's way. As long as I'm making sure that I'm doing my part and I'm being present how I need to be. Now, we're homebodies. All of us could be home all day. I could be downstairs, she could be upstairs, somebody could be on the middle floor, and we fine. Let her hear my keys jingle. Let her hear me grab my car keys. Let her hear the alarm go off upstairs. Like she'll where you going? Why you gotta go there? Why can't you stay home? Because she just wants me in the house. You know, you got teenagers, they may not want you in their face. They may not want you in their business, but they want you in that house. So where you go? Can I go? Yeah, I want to go with you. Well, no, I don't think you're gonna be fine. Oh, so you're gonna do something else without me. So it's like, I'm just saying, like these things happen, these things come up, these things become part of the script, and we have to be able to adjust as necessary to each of these as they move and how they flow. But we as fathers are present. How we're present is probably the biggest question to ask. And this is when it comes to wives. How do you need us to be present? Or how would you like me to be present? What are some things you believe I could do to make this household better? I don't claim to know it all. I'm not putting myself up here like, men, we're not like that. If you believe that there's something you'd like to see us do different or do better, you got to be able to speak to that thing. Right? My computer's been having problems today, but I did bring up a crosswalk .com where they had men and women rate themselves, husbands and wives rate themselves. And the women rated themselves higher almost verbatim when it came to being good mothers versus dads being good fathers. It was good and it was great, right? And you had more women in excellent, and you had more wives in excellent, and more husbands put themselves in the good category. And part of the reason we do that is it could be some personal inadequacies that we feel we have. It could be related to how the spouse tells us we're not great fathers. I've talked to brothers who've been saying who've been told that you're not a great dad. Right? And so when a father hears words like that coming from his wife, when a husband hears words like that coming from his wife, it's either two things. It's the truth and we ain't gonna like you, or it's a lie and we ain't gonna like you. Which one you want to pick? Right? Parenting. I text somebody today. I just said, woo, parenting is work. It's going to require you to be face to face with yourself. It's going to require you to be able to address your unresolved issues from your childhood. And if you don't have any, that's cool. And I'm not always talking about deep stuff, y'all. Everybody want to go deep to the heinous things that happened to the childhood. It's the stuff ain't even all that deep. It can be something super small. You know, I shared with my cousin who I was raised with the other day. I said, I had ran away from home twice my senior year. At the beginning of senior year, and I ran away 3 months into senior year from foster care with cousins. All right. At my graduation, now I caught up with my biological father senior year. I went to stay for him for like a month and a half until the woman I call mom now took me in. All right. And I went to see my dad the morning of graduation. I said, hey, Dad, here's tickets to my graduation. All right. My cousin who I was raised with, gonna be at graduation. Cool. I know he gonna be there with his mom, who not speaking to me. I'm not speaking to her. I knew his dad was gonna probably be there. All right. Now I graduated on 33rd and Federal. That's in Stateway Gardens, IIT. My dad lived at 35th and Federal. If anybody could have made it to my graduation, it was my biological father. He was a no-show. But the man who I had lived with in foster care, Big Roscoe, he saw me. He's like, yeah, I know what's going on with y'all. I don't care about that stuff, man. You my son too. And gave me the biggest hug in the world, man. It made me feel so good. But there are things you got to confront. I shared some stuff with my daughter this weekend. I said, hey, I'm gonna let you know what happened to me when I was your age. And I'm sure she's like, I know what you said, but what does that mean? Right? There are things in parenting styles that you're gonna have to come face to face with. All you can do now, Crystal, when you're talking about how you can plan for it, is doing that work now. So when you do have to experience it, you're still gonna have to deal with something, but it's not as weighty, it's not as heavy, it's not as burdensome. Those are the key parts. That's how you be intentional in parenting. You have to be intentional in your marriage, your relationship, your choice selection, who God has put into your life for you to spend the rest of your life with. That when you say I do, our intention is to stay married forever, come what may, from the heinous stuff and all that. Come what may. I'm intentional about this relationship working and lasting forever. That was one thing my wife asked me. She said, I need to know. Now I'm gonna be good, future husband. But I need to know that if one of us does do the dummy, if you're gonna be ready to work it out. Because we can't do this other thing. That's reflective of the world. We're not trying to reflect the world. We're trying to reflect Jesus Christ and him crucified. And the foundation of us is forgiveness. You got to be ready to forgive your child because they're going to disappoint you. Because that's just what we did as kids. We disappointed our parents. We disappointed our guardians. It's just we're not fully developed yet. So of course we're going to disappoint. They want the absolute best for us, and we didn't see it. Now I get to live through that. The gift of parenting. Right? It's all part of the process. But the process does not have to be that hard. It's going to be hard, but it doesn't have to be that hard. Why? Because we have the Lord on our side. He's with us. And if we turn to him more instead of people as we begin to go through these things, he'll lead us to the right people that can guide us along the way. Right? Sometimes we put people on pedestals they never belong on. So we have to be able to ensure that when we're engaging in these conversations with our children, that we're doing it from an aspect of respect and love and correction and love and discipline and love. Love has to be the foundation of it. That's how you change the life of your relationship with your children. And I'm not saying that works for everybody. I'm just saying that if you're intentional, it can work. But how long suffering are you? How long suffering are you willing to be? Right. Ryan, I have not seen King Richard yet. I'm going to watch that before we connect tomorrow in the Brotherhood check-in. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Yeah, I've been hearing about that. Fathers that are there for some kids and leave their other kids to fend for themselves. Yeah, it's that's a real big issue and a real big discussion, man. I'll definitely make sure I try to get that in before we connect tomorrow. But yeah, and so you have situations where you get into a parenting situation. You got to be ready for this. These are things I try to help my young brothers at church through. They came to me with a situation where the son got belligerent with the mom. Well, the mom and the son, they living in another state. He's under a different headship. She's married. Your son's got a stepdad who's taking care of him. And the son gets out of pocket and the stepdad has to step in with discipline. And then you've got the young brothers who got a problem with their son being disciplined by another man. I'm sorry, bro. You should have thought about that before, y'all had these babies. But I'm not going to call you when you in my house to handle business with your son. There's no need for me to talk to you at all. Your son disrespect my wife, I'm going to handle that business. Your daughter disrespect my wife, handle that business. Vice versa, right? These are the things you got to be able to discuss. Realize that the older you are when you're getting married, the chances that you're going to meet somebody who already has children. You've got to be ready for that blended family dynamic. You've got to be ready to adjust, and you've got to be ready to shift, right? There's a couple, two couples at church who had blended families. Man, they took vacations together. It started off rocky. But once the husbands connected from the blended families, they started going on vacations together, showing up at each other's kids' graduations together. So this is what I know what God can do even in those situations, right? Is love the core of it. Love is going to be the core of your marriage. Love should be the core of your relationship. Love is the core of our relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ, Yeshua Jah, right? That's the core of our relationship. Has to be the same way with our children. We walk in that love. And this is growth for me. I'm a military man. I can go off in 2.5 seconds to this day. When I say I got some hindrances in my leadership at work and at home, that's it for me. It's sometimes I don't follow scripture. I'm not slow to speak. I'm quick to speak and I'm fast to wrath when scripture tells me to be the opposite. Right? Yes, Mama T, the core is love, right? I've got to line up with the scriptures. I put a post up probably 2 or something o'clock in the morning on Friday, probably Saturday morning. And I said that we are more forgiving of our friends and our bosses than we are our family members. Your boss tick you off, you going to work the next day with no problem. Your family do it, you ain't talking to them for 6-7 months. We got to be better. I'm in the age of the curse breaker. I'm breaking curses in Jesus' name. That's just 100. I'm breaking curses. I'm going to love you through it all. Maybe some tough love, maybe some separated, but I'm going to love you, right? We got to be the curse breakers, fam. We cannot continue on the path in our parenting. We cannot, as fathers, say, my dad wasn't there for me, so I don't need to be there for no child. No, break the curse. Break the curse. Get the healing you need. Get the deliverance that you need. Get the counseling that you need. Break the curse. Minister T said we got to tell our spirit to line up with the will of God 100%. Hey, look, man. I've had the pleasure of having multiple mothers in my life, right? My biological mother who gave me birth. My grandmother was there early on up till 1979 just to let me know that she was the first person to introduce me to what a church was on TV. Two things my grandmother did all the time was watch church service and the edge of night. My grandmother lived by the edge of night, okay? You ain't talk to her during that time. You just sit on the couch, baby, be quiet. Right? When I left there, my cousin Arlene, foster care with her till I ran away. All right. Another young lady by the name of Joyce Craft, spent like 2 days with her, but they were two of the most phenomenal days in my life. Right? Had my cousin Trisha. Love Trisha to life. Ran away from her crib senior year. I just had issues and I was just like, you know what? I'm better off on my own. And I was. And I knew that. Ain't no beef with me and cousin Trisha. We cool. We solid. We tight. We saved. Right? But Lee Verna Wells, the woman who took me into her house my senior year, I call her mom to this day. That woman means the world to me. Right? She means the absolute world to me. Took me in with her other kids. And I never knew the difference between how she felt about them and how she felt about me, ever. To this day, ever. To a point that her son said, man, I think she loved you more than me. I said, boy, be quiet. No, she don't. But we never knew the difference. She taught me what love is. My spiritual moms, one is listening in now, Mama T, Minister T. That's my spiritual mom. She know when I'm out of pocket. She know before I'm out of pocket when I'm gonna get out of pocket. We ain't gonna get into that. That's just too deep for y'all. But what I'm saying is, blessed with so many mothers who can help me in my parenting style. They know I'm military. My mama Cartwright, she'd be like, well, I know that dude. She called me out at my dad's funeral. I know a lot of you all get to see the Tony Briscoe, the minister, the man of God, the poet, the great orator. I know that other dude, that military guy. Yeah, I know that dude. I was like, did she just put me on blast? But what I'm saying is I have these women in my life who could help me with the hard stuff. The men in my life, the Elder Smiths, who I'm personal with, the men who are distant, like the Tom Durhams, who I've just got to watch him move and navigate his family, right? I got so many examples, and this is the biggest part of it. This is the biggest part of it, y'all. Whatever you don't get at home, God got for you in his house. You got to surround yourself with the right people who going to build you up. You got to surround, you want to be the great wife. You want to be a great husband. You want to be a great mother. You want to be a great father. You got to surround yourself with the people who are doing the work and who've done the work. I'm a witness to great parenting. I've seen what works with great parenting. We witnessed this Sunday with our assistant pastor, Dr. Pierce. I've witnessed it. What happens with the results of great parenting? My Mama T, her daughter was one of the first African-American women in real estate in Chicago. I see what great parenting looks like. I look at my wife and her sisters. I know what great parenting looks like. I look at my brother-in-laws. I know what great parenting looks like. Walk in the examples that the Lord has placed in your life. You're going to have to sacrifice your ego. You're going to have to sacrifice your pride. You're going to have to sacrifice, I don't want nobody in my business. Okay, so you want your family to die? I already recognize my daughter's not going to talk to me about the hard stuff until she's ready to. So what is it? What is my job then? It's to surround her with a village and a community that she can speak with. So if she's not talking to me, and if she's not comfortable talking to mom, that I've got enough women in her life that she can go to any one of them. Grandma, auntie, godmama, sisters at church. You gotta surround your young people with people you trust them with and who they can trust and build relationships with. I'm telling you, it actually works, people. I've struggled as a dad because I know my past. I had to let it go. I can't raise my child based on the stuff that I missed growing up. I cannot live my life vicariously through them and make them do things that I want them to do that I didn't get to do. It doesn't work like that. You have to have a village around you. In your village, a trusted village. That's right, Mama T. Yeah, be specific. A trusted village. Yeah, you have to. But if you're nervous about being a parent, it comes with the territory. You gonna mess up because it comes with the territory. But as long as love is leading the way, you may not see the manifestation of what you pouring into your child right now. You may not live to see the manifestation of what you pouring into your child right now. All you can do is trust God. They are on loan. I commend my daughter to the Lord and to the word of his grace, which is able to build her up and give her an inheritance among them that are sanctified. That's my job. That's my role. I was grateful to stand in, to teach, to be able to teach her in her class so she could hear my voice, hear her dad teach the word of God. She supports me. I don't preach and minister to her like most people do. I do it through hip hop. That's how I speak to my daughter. When she want to hear her dad voice, she know what she can do. We in the car, put on my song. If I can't talk to you directly, you gonna listen to this song. But be present. But go get your healing. Don't wait for it. It ain't, you want to be healed. Healing comes through work. It don't come through just sitting there. Yes, there's some things the Lord will deliver you from, but there's some stuff you got to work for. When it comes to the psyche of parenting, the psychology of parenting, you want to get right. You want to get stuff out of you that you grew up with that you didn't like. You got to start that work now before you get married, before you get pregnant. Put the work in. Brother, before you get married, before you get her pregnant, you put the work in. And with a trusted village, you can't go wrong. That's the power of community. This is why we should not forsake the assembly of the brethren. This is why God would have us dwell together in unity so we can pick one another up. I had a young person call me at 12:30 at night, getting ready to run away from home. You hear me? She called me. Well, shouldn't no girl be calling you that late at night? Who you want her to call? The adult who been hitting on her? Who said, whatever you need, young baby, call me? No, she called me. And I called her two mentors the first thing in the morning. Hey, such and such called me at this time last night. Y'all probably want to check on her today. That's the village. That's the village. That's the village I'm talking about. But don't miss, she found somebody she could trust to convince her to stay home and then to turn her over to her mentors the next day. Hey, check on y'all daughter. She going through some real hard stuff right now. Right? Still got a relationship with that young lady to this day because that's what the village does. It doesn't leave. It doesn't abandon. It doesn't forsake. It participates. So I got it. COVID has changed a whole lot, baby. You better turn on Zoom. You better get on a Google Meet. You better go on FaceTime. Facebook Messenger. Use the tools that God has allowed us to have in this generation and in this age to stay connected with people. And if your parents are still living, don't let them leave here unless you get right. My mom's still living. Tried to reach out to her a few weeks ago. She didn't want to talk to me. Hung up on me twice, 3 times. It's all good. I'm going to do my part. So that's all I got for tonight, family. I thank you for tuning in to Christian Man, Christian Walk, and Christian Talk. I'm asking y'all, please pray for my brother, Gary, and his family. They are caregiving, and caregiving is a lot of work. Minister T is a nurse. She knows what I'm talking about. It is a lot of work. So please pray for my Dotson family. They need your prayers. They need your prayers. So I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I was a blessing and helpful to some of you on tonight. Please share the link to this with someone. Share it on your pages for me. Get folks to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. That would be great because this is what I do best. This is part of my call to give back to the community and to my people. And if your dad is out there somewhere in this known universe, I don't know what the situation is. It ain't my business what the situation is. But as you're led, not by me, as you're led by God, reach out. And it may take a while for things to get right. Love endures all things. It's your boy, Tony B, with Gary Dotson, Message Mondays, Christian Men, Christian Walk, Christian Talk. Have an amazing evening with your families. God bless.